Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have hired former CIA agents with a proven track record of lying to the public, gaslighting the public.
Blake Lively's tangled legal skirmish with Justin Baldoni was already raising eyebrows across Hollywood. Yet nobody anticipated the drastic step she'd take next, bringing in an ex-CIA operative known for disinformation tactics. This shock move came on the heels of a courtroom fiasco that left Lively's legal team looking sloppy and overzealous. In a case where everything from phone records to A-list alliances has been dragged into the spotlight, the story seems to grow more astonishing by the day. Stick around, because the deeper you look, the more twisted it becomes. By all outward appearances, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni started off as nothing more than co-stars on a film project destined for box office gold. Their interactions were professional at first, even friendly, leading the industry to assume they'd keep that polished image rolling throughout press tours and red carpets. But beneath the red carpet smiles, tension simmered. Rumors of creative clashes began to bubble up, with some on-set insiders claiming Lively was constantly jockeying for greater control. Baldoni, known for his calm demeanor, supposedly tried to keep things amicable. Yet in the months following the film's release, news of a brewing legal dispute emerged. Lively contended that Baldoni was orchestrating a smear campaign against her, insisting the trouble started in August 2024. Despite that specific timeline, she demanded phone records stretching back years, a request that would soon come back to haunt her. From the outside, it's always tempting to ask, what on earth made these two go from co-stars to courtroom enemies? Hollywood watchers suspect bruised egos played a role, but as the legal documents piled up, it became clear that this clash wasn't your standard spat. It was a budding war fueled by massive sums of money, monstrous publicity stakes, and two reputations that refused to budge. But that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss. Are her lawyers dumb? Like, what's happening? Why do they keep making these mistakes and fumbling the ball like this?
When news broke that Lively wanted Baldoni's private data, jaws dropped. She wasn't asking for a handful of texts or a few relevant emails. Instead, her subpoenas zeroed in on everything from call logs to entire location histories and possible communications between Baldoni and his own medical team. The sheer scope of her demand was so broad it read more like a fishing expedition than a legitimate request. The judge presiding over the case, Judge Louis Lyman, didn't mince words. He criticized the subpoenas for being intrusive, disproportionate, and lacking any logical tie to the exact time period Lively herself defined. Baldoni's defense insisted that if the alleged smear campaign began in August 2024, there was no need for phone records dating all the way back to 2022. Judge Lyman agreed. This ruling was more than a simple legal hiccup for Lively. It was an embarrassing blow that undermined her credibility. Legal analysts could only scratch their heads. Why would a team of high-paid attorneys make such a basic error in their request? And why push so
It's absurd that they were going to this level
aggressively for details that might not even be relevant? The court's refusal to let Lively rummage through Baldoni's entire personal life introduced an uncomfortable question. If she's so confident about her claims, why the desperate hunt for any shred of damning data? From the outside, the gaffe looked colossal. It prompted some observers to wonder if Lively's entire approach was built on sand. The next move would determine whether she could salvage her case or sink even deeper into controversy. When a celebrity feels cornered, the typical route is to hire a crisis PR firm well-versed in Hollywood's brand of damage control. Blake Lively, however, took an entirely different direction, and it shocked everyone. She enlisted a former CIA operative, a man rumored to be intimately familiar with psychological warfare and government-level media manipulation. This particular PR strategist was once associated with claims of orchestrating large-scale disinformation. He was even tied to a high-profile political scandal that hinged on publicly dismissing a major story as fake when evidence eventually suggested otherwise. In short, he was known for swaying public narratives on a massive scale. Lively's decision to bring in someone with that kind of reputation instantly raised suspicions. If her case was so robust, why would she need a figure skilled in spinning controversies? Critics argued that this wasn't about defending the truth, it was about controlling how the world perceives the truth. The difference might seem subtle, but it's crucial. A standard Hollywood crisis manager tries to shape a positive image for their client. An ex-CIA operative? He spent an entire career ensuring damaging info gets buried, while carefully pushing a carefully curated version of reality. Suddenly, the question everyone was asking wasn't just, who's telling the truth? It was, what is Lively hiding? And with the ex-CIA operative whispering in her ear, the entire lawsuit saga took on a more sinister edge. Still, the real twist was yet to unfold. Almost as soon as Lively demanded Baldoni stop speaking publicly about the lawsuit, she was seen doing the exact opposite. She and Ryan Reynolds popped up in comedic sketches on SNL, where the legal feud served as fodder for half-joking banter. It was as if Lively wanted a protective order in court while simultaneously courting public attention on late-night television. Observers couldn't ignore the contradiction. On one hand, Lively's attorneys claimed public discussion of the case was damaging, and they filed motions to keep certain details private. On the other hand, Lively and Reynolds were out there on a primetime platform, tossing sly jabs Baldoni's way, all under the guise of light entertainment. Industry insiders began describing this duality as weaponized hypocrisy. If your goal is to keep matters private, you don't go on one of America's biggest stages to poke fun at the situation. This double standard was tearing holes in Lively's victim narrative, and fans weren't shy about calling her out on social media. The more she complained that Baldoni's side was out there spreading lies, the more people remembered those public appearances where she seemed to relish the spotlight. Behind closed doors, a few executives reportedly bristled at the fiasco. Nobody likes a Hollywood scandal that spirals so far out of control it stains the entire project's legacy. Lively might have once been a darling of the industry, but in the wake of these mixed messages, some questioned whether she'd overplayed her hand. Hollywood loves a comeback, but if you sabotage your own public image while trying to sabotage someone else's, the road to redemption grows much longer. Just when people thought the legal drama couldn't escalate further, Justin Baldoni launched a colossal counteroffensive, a $400 million defamation and extortion lawsuit. Baldoni claimed Lively had fed baseless accusations surfaced, stories to major outlets, and had used her Hollywood influence to derail his career opportunities. Whether you see him as an underdog or a strategist capitalizing on public sympathy, the filing rattled Tinseltown. According to Baldoni's complaint, Lively orchestrated a targeted campaign to paint him as a predator, all for the sake of personal vengeance. He insisted the allegations had no merit and were merely a ploy to overshadow his successful run in the industry. He claimed to have lost multiple lucrative projects due to the negative press swirling around him, and he was determined to hold Lively accountable for every lost dollar. What's more, he alleged that Ryan Reynolds, leveraging his clout at top agencies, tried to blacklist Baldoni from specific Hollywood circles. Though details about these alleged behind-the-scenes pressure tactics remain scarce, insiders hinted at explosive revelations if the case goes to trial. If Baldoni can link phone logs or emails to efforts by Lively and Reynolds to damage his professional relationships, it could open a Pandora's box for everyone involved. In many ways, this wasn't merely a lawsuit. It was a statement that Baldoni wasn't going down without a fight. Lively's lawyers might have underestimated him early on, but the $400 million figure spoke volumes. The stakes now soared well beyond conventional celebrity brawls. And with his countersuit in motion, the momentum visibly shifted in Baldoni's favor. Yet, as everyone would soon see, that was only the beginning of the broader PR war. There's an old Hollywood adage: if you can't sway public opinion with the facts, feed a story to a powerful media outlet. Before anyone could blink, a hard-hitting article casting Baldoni in a suspicious light appeared in the New York Times. The piece carried insinuations of wrongdoing and unverified details that conveniently aligned with Lively's narrative. It didn't take a seasoned detective to suspect someone in Lively's corner had helped shape the story. Baldoni wasted no time. His legal team slammed the New York Times with a staggering $250 million lawsuit, citing defamation and pointing to a lack of evidence or corroboration in the piece. Industry watchers reeled at the possibility that Lively and Reynolds had pulled strings to get that story published. After all, a feature in such a prestigious outlet has the power to shift public sentiment dramatically, especially if readers assume the Times is always credible. This was yet another case where Lively's strategy seemed to boomerang. Instead of burying Baldoni, the controversial article thrust her motives under an even brighter spotlight. As depositions approached, all eyes turned to the Times' editorial process. Did they rush to print without verifying sources? Were they given partial documents from Lively's lawsuit? And crucially, would they throw Lively under the bus to avoid a huge defamation verdict? With the courtroom momentum slipping through her fingers, Lively doubled down. She pivoted to a media narrative of personal distress, claiming violent messages from online trolls as a reason to keep court documents sealed. Critics pounced, calling it a blatant attempt to silence Baldoni's evidence. After all, Lively herself had mocked him on national television. Why cry foul now when he tried to defend himself? Social media erupted with commentary about Lively's selective privacy. Memes circulated comparing her quest for secrecy with that SNL stunt, fueling ongoing skepticism about her sincerity. Meanwhile, the ex-CIA operative publicly defended Lively, painting her as a misunderstood star caught in a vicious smear. For some fans, the heavy-handed PR only fueled more doubt. Rumblings indicated that Lively's own team worried about a possible meltdown if she kept digging in. Yet she showed no sign of retreat. With high-profile endorsements, cunning legal maneuvers, and a swirl of hush-hush background deals, Lively seemed determined to push forward until she broke Baldoni or lost everything. And if she had to shield certain evidence from the public to preserve her squeaky clean image, so be it. But the clock was ticking. Unlike Lively, who was fighting on multiple fronts, Baldoni stayed locked onto a single objective, clearing his name and winning his countersuits. With each legal triumph, like Judge Lyman's refusal to let Lively rummage through his entire digital life, Baldoni's defense grew more confident. He had gone from looking like Lively's chosen scapegoat to a formidable opponent who refused to cave. Executives and producers began reevaluating their stance on Lively. While nobody disputed her talent, the ballooning drama posed a risk they couldn't ignore. Making enemies in high places is never good for business, and paying an ex-CIA spook to muzzle negative headlines reeked of desperation. Public relations nightmares are one thing, but once the courts start exposing deeper manipulations, that tarnish doesn't wash off easily. Baldoni's colleagues rallied behind him. Some publicly voiced support, describing him as a professional who never caused trouble. Others pitched him new projects, sensing that if he emerged victorious, he could become a symbol of resilience in a cutthroat industry. That potential redemption arc made him even more appealing to certain directors and producers, ironically boosting his career prospects. Amid these shifting dynamics, Lively and Reynolds struggled to maintain their cultivated image as Hollywood's golden couple. Their brand relied on comedic charm, philanthropic gestures, and a squeaky clean relationship profile. But if a jury finds them liable for defamation, that golden sheen would inevitably dull. In a tangled web of lawsuits, blame, and shifting alliances, it became clear that dragging a massive media outlet into the fray had consequences beyond what any single celebrity could control. Whether the Times had knowingly participated or was simply a pawn, the blowback was real, and the defamation suit threatened to tarnish its reputation. As the lawsuits expanded, leaked audio tapes and behind-the-scenes confessions revealed a deeper network of industry maneuvering. WME CEO Ari Emanuel was captured on tape acknowledging private dealings that seemed to favor Lively and Reynolds while icing out Baldoni. Conflicts of interest started piling up, and some worried that entire agencies might get subpoenaed. If A-listers texted about the feud, those messages could be fair game in court. Even bigger bombshells seemed possible if someone like Taylor Swift, close friends with Lively, had weighed in privately. Suddenly, the entire ecosystem of Hollywood alliances felt shaky, as executives realized they could be forced to testify, hand over emails, or otherwise reveal secrets they never planned to share. The star-studded web around Lively and Reynolds began to look less like a supportive community and more like a precarious stack of dominoes, ready to topple if the wrong subpoena landed in the right inbox. And for Lively, the ex-CIA handler at her side might not be enough to keep that avalanche from crashing down. Had Lively orchestrated a behind-the-scenes takedown? Or were these stories simply more spin to keep the scandal swirling? Most watchers suspected some mix of both, a tapestry of half-truths, plausible deniability, and cutthroat ambition that defined old-school Hollywood at its worst. With the courtroom momentum slipping through her fingers, Lively doubled down. She pivoted to a media narrative of personal distress, claiming violent messages from online trolls as a reason to keep court documents sealed. Critics pounced, calling it a blatant attempt to silence Baldoni's evidence. After all, Lively herself had mocked him on national television. Why cry foul now when he tried to defend himself? Social media erupted with commentary about Lively's selective privacy. Memes circulated comparing her quest for secrecy with that SNL stunt, fueling ongoing skepticism about her sincerity. Meanwhile, the ex-CIA operative publicly defended Lively, painting her as a misunderstood star caught in a vicious smear. For some fans, the heavy-handed PR only fueled more doubt. Rumblings indicated that Lively's own team worried about a possible meltdown if she kept digging in. Yet she showed no sign of retreat. With high-profile endorsements, cunning legal maneuvers, and a swirl of hush-hush background deals, Lively seemed determined to push forward until she broke Baldoni or lost everything. And if she had to shield certain evidence from the public to preserve her squeaky clean image, so be it. But the clock was ticking. Unlike Lively, who was fighting on multiple fronts, Baldoni stayed locked onto a single objective, clearing his name and winning his countersuits. With each legal triumph, like Judge Lyman's refusal to let Lively rummage through his entire digital life, Baldoni's defense grew more confident. He had gone from looking like Lively's chosen scapegoat to a formidable opponent who refused to cave. Executives and producers began reevaluating their stance on Lively. While nobody disputed her talent, the ballooning drama posed a risk they couldn't ignore. Making enemies in high places is never good for business, and paying an ex-CIA spook to muzzle negative headlines reeked of desperation. Public relations nightmares are one thing, but once the courts start exposing deeper manipulations, that tarnish doesn't wash off easily. Baldoni's colleagues rallied behind him. Some publicly voiced support, describing him as a professional who never caused trouble. Others pitched him new projects, sensing that if he emerged victorious, he could become a symbol of resilience in a cutthroat industry. That potential redemption arc made him even more appealing to certain directors and producers, ironically boosting his career prospects. Amid these shifting dynamics, Lively and Reynolds struggled to maintain their cultivated image as Hollywood's golden couple. Their brand relied on comedic charm, philanthropic gestures, and a squeaky clean relationship profile. But if a jury finds them liable for defamation, that golden sheen would inevitably dull. There's an old saying, never start a war you can't finish. Blake Lively, once beloved for her sweet demeanor, seems to have ignited a blaze that's threatening to consume her entire legacy. Between the failed subpoenas, the backlash from her ex-CIA hire, and the staggering lawsuits looming over her, she's teetering on the edge. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni has grown stronger with each of Lively's public missteps. His $400 million defamation and extortion suit against Lively and Reynolds is a battering ram aimed straight at the heart of their reputations. On top of that, his $250 million lawsuit against the New York Times could redefine how Hollywood celebrities use and abuse major media platforms to spin narratives. What started as a private dispute between two co-stars has mushroomed into a full-blown spectacle, drawing in Hollywood moguls, news outlets, and possibly other A-listers. The question no one can stop asking is, how far will Lively go to keep a lid on damaging revelations? And if she fails, will her once shimmering star fade for good? For now, the drama continues, each hearing and leaked detail peeling away another layer of carefully managed spin. Regardless of which side emerges victorious in the courts, the real damage may already be done. As viewers, we're left to wonder how many such hidden machinations shape the entertainment world we admire, and whether this very public meltdown will finally compel the industry to change its ways. The downfall, if it comes, won't happen overnight. Lively has resources and connections that most people can only dream of, and the ex-CIA operative she brought on board might still craft a strategy to steer public perception back in her favor. Yet the internet never forgets, and neither do legal records. Each fresh revelation leaves a stain that's hard to erase. However this ends, it's far from over. The courts have yet to deliver a final verdict on the lawsuits. More evidence and testimonies are likely to trickle out, and each twist could pull in bigger names. So keep your eyes peeled for the next astonishing development, because in this battle of Hollywood giants, anything is possible. If you've ever doubted that Tinseltown is built on secrets and illusions, just look at the fiasco surrounding Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. Sometimes, the real drama isn't on the movie screen at all. It's happening behind closed doors, fueled by egos, billions of dollars, and a thirst for total control.